Let me begin with a formal hello. Good morning to our friends in North and South America. Good afternoon to our friends in Europe and the UK. Early evening to our friends in Dubai. Good evening to our friends in India, Thailand, Malaysia, Indonesia, Singapore. Good late evening to our friends in Australia. Hope you are well. You have some questions, JC?
How does one cure depression and sadness? Depression causes my mind to feel low, and this leads to laziness too. Thank you, Ajahn.
Yes. So, the human situation, and indeed the situation for all conscious beings, is we do meet with challenging and painful circumstances. Often, depending on one's karma, depending on the realm which is one is inhabiting, it's a matter of degrees. Obviously, the beings in hell and ghost realms, compared to the beings in Brahma realms, in the samsaric picture, are experiencing different levels of pain. For human beings, Lord Buddha describes that there is suffering in the very act of being born and aging, experiencing sickness and dying. And then there is also the suffering of having to be associated with that which is unloved and separated from the love. So we're in a situation where inevitably we will experience some things which are painful. And for an untrained mind, I would say it is normal to respond to the negative spectrum of phenomenon with dejection, irritation, frustration. And this is where we come to the necessity as human beings and then as Buddhist practitioners to actually train our minds. We have to take more responsibility. So one of the challenges of if the mind has become habituated to sadness and depression is that there is this overlap between the mind and the body, and there are the kind of chemicals that the brain releases when it gets depressed can really affect the mind for a period of time. So, and they become like a negative feedback loop, and it can become quite entrenched. So if a person has like clinical depression, they may need actual medical care. And if someone has clinical depression, I recommend seeing somebody to see what can be done. But in general, I do believe that the human situation is full of potential as well. So long as we have enough food and a health, good enough health, and a roof over our heads, the human situation is one which is full of potential to experience a lot of benevolent mind states. That's one of the things Ajahn Chah said, was that most human beings have an inheritance. We're all born with a mansion. However, out of perhaps the power of ignorance and delusion, we tend to live our lives in a couple of cramped, dusty rooms, banging into the same old things. However, the potential is there to bust open the windows and let the fresh breeze in and open up some other rooms and experience a lot more mental clarity, spaciousness, joy, and even rapture, bliss, deep contentment, and then the joy that can come from letting go of hindrances, letting go of kilesa, when the spiritual powers, the 5 spiritual powers, faith, energy, mindfulness, concentration, and wisdom become genuinely powerful, one is able to go above the power of the hindrances, be aloof from the 5 hindrances for periods of time, and experience pure mental bliss and joy. And then there's the pleasure that comes from insight, which is even higher. So it's good at first, it's good to be optimistic. One should be optimistic, and I think it's very easy to feel, what's the word, resentful and disappointed and hard done by. I think that's a normal one way to respond to difficulty and challenges and loss, is to feel resentful. And you know, I really feel for people who believe in theistic religions, because if you believe that an all-powerful creator God has the power to deliver happiness or not happiness or blessings, etc., and you're experiencing suffering, and then there's a different kind of a suffering that you add on to it. Which, I love God so much, but you know, my life is a mess. And one can feel cursed. One can feel that God is holding one out of his love for some reason that you don't understand, because you love him so much, or her. And as Buddhists, I believe we're very lucky that we don't have to add that particular type of suffering to our experience. We accept that unsatisfactoriness, difficulties, challenges is the deal. It's the nature of samsara. It's the nature of the conditions. That's what we have to work with. Nothing's going wrong. We're not particularly cursed. We're not being ignored by any gods. But we do have karma. And so, but first, affirming one's potential and trying to feel confident about it. And sometimes we have to wrestle with those mind states which are withholding goodwill and having a doubt in one's abilities. So sometimes we have to get in there and wrestle with that and make some positive affirmations, because and we have, looking at the big picture, a long-term optimistic view is helpful. And because the potential for complete liberation, to purify the mind, is definitely there. That's not it's not that because the hardware and the software is the same, right? As a human being with a body and a mind, the potential is there. Lord Buddha says the place of liberation exists within this fathom-long body. And he didn't say, for some people, but not others. It's when you have a body and a mind, you have potential for liberation and purification. So that's a given. And some people feel that I'll never be able to do it. And one has to challenge that. You say, no. And one has to get somewhat determined and start making some positive affirmations like, no, I am going to liberate this mind. And, and start saying to yourself, and I don't care how long it takes, but I'm going to do it. And believe in the potential. I believe in the potential to Lord Buddha demonstrated it, the Arahants demonstrated it. So I believe in it. The Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha is my refuge, and I am going to accomplish what the Buddha and the Arahants did too. And so we have to start with some kind of courage and determination, as well as positive affirmation. And then I think these Brahma Vihara practices, loving kindness, compassion, mudita, they really are powerful. And they are the opposite to depression. Lord Buddha describes them as divine abidings. So Brahma is a Brahma realm. If we truly cultivate them, you can be born as a Brahma deity in the highest echelons of samsara, radiating light boundlessly for an eon. It's not necessarily recommended, but it's just good to know that that's one option, because it kind of balances the sense of contraction, limitation, darkness, frustration. It's okay, well, if I really knuckle down on my metta practice, next lifetime I might be a Brahma deity radiating light, filling all of samsara until the end of the eon. It's just, as a creative experiment, explore the options. And the thing about the metta practice is we have to be consistent and we have to be determined. As with any discipline, meditation discipline is the same. So if you have a strong and serious habit of feeling depressed and dejected and sad, and then falling into the laziness of dejection, not making skillful efforts because you are depressed and lacking in energy, well, then you need to wrestle with this, and you need to wrestle with it by really pumping the metta in. So it's like, maybe you do it 3 times a day. You just sit and you hold loving kindness in the heart area. We were just doing a guided meditation earlier. A very important thing is sincerity. You really, really have to wish yourself well. A lot is at stake. This is, sometimes a bit of samsaric perspective and a bit of some wholesome fear can be helpful. It's like, you have to challenge yourself. If you've got born in a human situation, you've met the Buddha's teachings, you have teachers who can explain things to you. If you don't knuckle down and practice now, when will you? Okay? So first of all, you have to affirm the potential, give yourself a pat on the back, you've got everything you need. And then you have to say, given that, you better get your shit together. Excuse my French. You need to knuckle down. And so you have to be a spiritual warrior. And you see that depression and dejection, it's probably falling in the second hindrance. The hindrances are bandits, they're robbers, they steal your peacefulness. So we need to protect from these bandits. We need to stop them robbing us. So get determined. Really, really hold that loving kindness in the heart. May I be well, may I be happy. May I be well, may I be happy. It's not about the words, it's about an energy of pure, loving kindness and goodwill held truly, sincerely in that heart. And you just hold it there until that's all that's left in the mind. You have to be absolutely sincere about this. And if you do it every day, 5 minutes in the morning, 5 minutes in the afternoon, 5 minutes in the evening, it's going to have some powerful consequences. And when you begin to get the good results from meditation, you're going to be rewiring the brain to be experiencing a different type of chemicals and hormones, different types of endorphins, different types of, a lot of people have like dopamine addiction. We're addicted to sugar, we're addicted to caffeine. A lot of people like to smoke dope. We're addicted to looking at social media, seeing how many people like your comments or whatever. It's all dopamine. You get a little dopamine rush. But when you meditate, the brain will actually release serotonin, which is a chemical more associated with well-being. It's not just a kind of not like a sugar junkie hit. It's a more pervasive, lovely, pleasant, relaxing experience. So there's people who become skilled in meditation, the body starts producing different types of hormones which produce long and enduring feelings of well-being. But we have a serious habit, we have to apply an heroic effort to the remedy. And a lot of people feel like it seems selfish or self-indulgent to have loving kindness for oneself. And that needs to be challenged. It's Lord Buddha says the people who have loving kindness, their minds become concentrated easily. One needs a certain amount of concentration, right collectedness, in order to develop insight, in order to liberate oneself from samsara. So it's simply part of what has to be done, as we often chant at the end of these Zoom sessions. This is what should be done. One has to cultivate loving kindness, and it starts appearing to be a little bit self-indulgent or vain, and it appears to be indulging the delusion of self. We have to be modest and humble enough to acknowledge the fact that we have a sense of self. And we're reacting to things, we're liking things, we're not liking things, we're becoming different. Okay, so the sense of self is there. So we have to make it a wholesome one. Ajahn Achalo says the foundation for insight. The foundation for insight is having a deva-like mind. So we have to make the mind like a deva, a bright, happy, glad mind. And then when we establish the foundation of loving kindness for oneself, then the way we stop it from being an exercise in vanity and stop it from being something that increases self-cherishing is that we get disciplined about including more and more beings and more classes of beings. So you include your mum and dad or your teacher, some friends, and then you include the cleaning lady, the taxi driver, and then it goes to everybody. And when you can breathe in, may I be well, may I be happy, breathing out, may all beings be well, may all beings be happy. That's a very expansive and spacious mind state, which is extremely wholesome. And then it's much more easy to be with the breath. Earlier we were doing a guided meditation. We started with breath. We did some metta in the middle, and then we ended in more breath. And I think that many people probably will have noticed that the mind was more happy to stay with the breathing after the 5 minutes of metta. Because when there is some contentment and gladness and some happiness in the mind is willing to be still and just enjoy that stillness. So in terms of addressing depression, I think limiting news, I mentioned this last week as well, limiting the amount of depressing news one exposes oneself to, because that can be triggering of anxiety and worry and resentment. So limit it. Don't watch more than you need to. I'm sure if something really serious is happening, you're going to hear about it from your friends and your relatives and everyone else. So limit the news. Be serious about your meditation discipline. And then, of course, the Lord Buddha recommends the practice of generosity. And one of the reasons we practice generosity, or many reasons, often underestimated practice. We often think we should be generous because it's nice. It makes good karma. But Dhanna, Sila, and Bhavana, those three things are the foundation for Nibbana. So Dhanna is extremely powerful. So why is Dhanna powerful? First, it goes against the tendency of greed, one of the three root kilesas that ties us to samsara. So if we are practicing generosity as a discipline, we are weakening our greed and our attachment to our stuff. But we're also training in letting things go. And so when it comes to being able to let go of negative mind states, having given away physical things is an excellent foundation for that function of being able to relinquish. We relinquish physical things, resources, time, talent, and skills. Later on, we are able to relinquish hindrances, ignorance, and delusion. It's the same thing, but it just deepens. In Sila, we're relinquishing the poor behavior, unskillful behavior. In Bhavana, we're relinquishing the negative mind states, the ignorance, the greed, and the hatred on the level of mind. The other thing about generosity is Lord Buddha encourages us to recollect the skillful things, generous and kind things that we did, and gladden the mind. It's another thing that we can do when we have a disciplined dharana practice. If the mind is starting to become dejected, we can go to our cushion and recollect how many times you went to the temple and fed monks and nuns, how many times you donated to the orphanage, how many foster kids you helped in Africa, whatever it is. And I know that these days not everybody has money, and there's inflation issues and unemployment issues and bankruptcy issues. I know there's all sorts of challenges. So we have to be creative about the ways that we are being generous. So I believe there are always ways to be generous. So if you don't have a lot of money, you can figure out ways that a little money might go a long way. And I think you can sponsor a Tibetan nun in India for a whole year for a couple of $100. And it's just a few coffees at Starbucks, literally, and you can sponsor a nun for a year. That's the kind of thing that one can do to just feel good about having supported somebody. And, so yes, a disciplined practice of generosity, and also I think chanting. So the thing about Luang Por Chah said this about practice: when you want to do it, you do it. When you don't want to do it, you do it. When you're inspired, you do it. When you're uninspired and you're peaceful, you do it. When you're not peaceful, you do it. So when you're diligent, you do it. When you're lazy, you do it. One has to have that kind of resolution, because oftentimes the mind feels depressed, dejected, averse, irritated. You're not going to feel like chanting. But if you go and you bow to your shrine and you say to yourself, I am going to chant loudly and energetically for half an hour, I'm pretty sure at the end of that half an hour, you're not going to feel depressed. So it's like sometimes we just have to do it. Fake it till you make it. You do it, and different chemicals start releasing in the brain, different energies start happening, and it might be the case that after 15 minutes of chanting, you start to feel uplifted and actually genuinely into it. But sometimes we just have to go and do it. And the mind is a very malleable thing. And these practices that we do, like the degree to which we feel depressed and dejected, and the degree to which we feel happiness, there is a relation to karma and merit. Lord Buddha does say that merit is synonymous with happiness. So when one practices keeping the ethical precepts, and one practices meditation daily, and one practices some generosity, merit will be accumulating, and different habits are forming in the mind, but also different things that we can't quite see. Just the power of good karma, the power of merit will start manifesting in the mind stream. And so anyway, I do believe it's a opportunity full of potential. And it's also the case that we have to be absolutely determined to cultivate that potential. And we have to wrestle with our negative mind states, the bandits, the robbers, and we have to kick them out of the mind by replacing them with wholesome qualities. And then you have the foundation for developing insight. And, insight is when if you can, once the clarity and some collectedness becomes more established, it will be possible to be able to notice a depressed mind state beginning. And then it'll be possible to notice it changing as it changes, and it'll be possible to notice it cease when it ceases. And one will develop the insight into the impermanent, not self nature of them as well, not identifying completely with it, even as it's occurring, having some space and some ability to reflect upon it, around it, and be aware of its arising, changing, and ceasing.
Thank you, Prajan. Prajan, the next question. Dear Ajahn, I have been following Theravada, Ajahn Chah's tradition for some years, and lately I have been listening to some Mahayana monks and chants. I quite admire the way they embody compassion and their inclusivity. I would like to enhance my practice by bringing some of these elements to it, but I don't know how to do it. Would you be able to recommend a practical way to do this without getting confused between different traditions? Many thanks for your kind advice.
I myself do have an eclectic practice, many people know. There is a risk, I have to be truthful, there is a risk of getting a bit confused. And so I'm not completely sure what to recommend, but other than to say what I personally find helpful. So, but in general, I do need to say this as a warning, for those of you who are aspiring to arahantship, if you want a quick liberation, if you want to be liberated from the cycle of samsara as quickly as possible, then there are consequences to picking up Mahayana practices, because Mahayana practices contain a vibration of more altruism, more compassionate focus. And it's likely that if you embrace Mahayana practices, that the mind will start inclining towards wanting to help liberate beings from samsara. And that is going to slow down your individual process towards liberation. That's a choice that people need to make. But one thing that Theravadan practitioners can do is to contemplate Maitreya, because as Lord Buddha does recommend Devanusati for people who have faith. as a skillful samatha practice. So most Theravadins will acknowledge that the Buddha said in the sutras that there is another Buddha coming in this eon. His name is Metteyya. And so to contemplate as a practice the existence of Metteyya Bodhisattva, who has spent 16 asankhya and 100,000 eons cultivating all of the qualities needed to be the Buddha with the most loving kindness ever, is uplifting. And I think it's skillful to visualize, because the Bodhisattvas spend their last life in Tushita, heaven, before descending to the earth, into the womb of their mothers. I think it's fine and skillful to visualize Metteyya as a celestial Bodhisattva in Tushita, destined for Buddhahood, and to recite his mantra. I think one form of it is Om Maitreya Soha, but there are several forms. And just do some mantras. Om Maitreya Soha, Om Maitreya Soha, Om Maitreya Soha. Or Namo Metteyya Buddha, Namo Metteyya Buddha, Namo Metteyya Buddha, Namo Metteyya Bodhisattva, Namo Metteyya Bodhisattva, whatever resonates for you, whatever few words means Metteyya Bodhisattva. So in Pali, Metteyya Bodhisattva, in Sanskrit, Maitreya Bodhisattva, and Chinese, Namo Mila Pho, I believe. Whatever the words. The point is you're recollecting the existence of this great Bodhisattva who has spent an extremely long time intending to be a Buddha who liberates millions of beings. He's extremely compassionate and full of loving kindness. The Tibetan Buddhists say that Maitreya's metta is so powerful that it will put out the fires of hell for a period of time. And he's going to be the first Buddha that's actually going to be able to liberate hell beings, because his metta is so powerful that he cools the fires of hell. And any beings who kept 5 precepts for a period of time, who made a mistake, who fell in hell, Maitreya will be able to help you. So I hope it's true. It would make sense, in terms of the conditions that were laid, profound conditions that were laid to bring about profound results. Metteyya has laid very profound conditions. So that's a very nice and uplifting recollection. I think probably about 90% of the faces on my screen are Asian-looking people from Malaysia, Indonesia, and Singapore. And many of these people will have it's almost like a karmic inheritance. These people will have a faith in Kuan Yin or Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva, so his Sanskrit name. So that's the Om Mani Padme Hum or the Namo Kuan Shi Yin Pusa mantras. You just get a mala, recite some mantras, recollect the existence of the celestial Bodhisattva in heaven. And Lord Buddha does say that the mind becomes like what it contemplates. So when you can get a painting or a picture or a tanka or a statue, and you look at that, it's like a tuning fork. And then you close your eyes and you try to visualize it above your head. You can imagine light washing through your mind stream, and imagine yourself being blessed by the Bodhisattva. Now, one doesn't need to doubt this, that the Bodhisattva will want to bless you. The Bodhisattvas extend their time in samsara for the express purpose of blessing as many people as possible. So feel confident that you are allowed to visualize a Bodhisattva above your head blessing you. It's okay. It's not being presumptuous. That's what they want to do. They want to bless you. They want you to feel blessed so that you get on with your practice. So yes, those are probably my 2 main Devanusati practices, Maitreya and Avalokiteshvara. And then one uses that as an uplifting samatha practice, and then the mind is more happy to be with the awareness of breathing, and you notice arising, staying for some time, ceasing, arising, staying for some time, ceasing. You can contemplate elements or impermanence or awareness of death, whatever you like, but you just integrate this. And so if there's a particular chant that just touches you, like I often do the long mantra of Avalokiteshvara. And sometimes, depending on karmic affinity, if a person has practiced different types of Buddhism in past lives, if there's a strong karmic affinity, like I've had a good number of people come and say to me that when I'm chanting the long mantra of Avalokiteshvara, their minds became peaceful. And I'm not making any claims. I'm just telling you what people told me. Many people on many occasions. Why is that? I would theorize that it's possible that if there's a karmic connection with Avalokiteshvara and the bhikkhu is chanting the mantra, that some blessings come. And those blessings don't just fill the mind stream of that one bhikkhu, they fill the space and the area around that bhikkhu. And enough people have said it on enough occasions that I would deduce that something's happening. But not everybody has the karmic affinity. And so this is where a little bit of experimentation is okay. See what works. And if there's a particular chant with my Chinese Malaysian students, I go to Malaysia and I traditionally will teach the Dhammacakka Sutta, the Anattalaka Sutta, the Fire Sermon, and the Anapanasati Sutta. And we will chant them in Pali. And we also chant the Sutta on Emptiness in Mandarin, because they're Chinese-speaking people who have some faith in Avalokiteshvara, and it's an uplifting chant. And it's just, for me, I just see that as tapping into their karmic inheritance, increasing blessings to help support their minds to be peaceful and develop insight. So if the Heart Sutra is uplifting and inspiring and helps your mind to be peaceful, I think it's a good one. When we contemplate anicca, dukkha, and anatta, after the insight into anicca, dukkha, or anatta, there's an experience of letting go, and what the mind experiences is emptiness. Emptiness of self, emptiness of grasping at permanence, emptiness of dukkha, sense of letting go, into a very peaceful, tranquil mind state. So a sutta whose subject matter is emptiness is within the umbrella of suitable contemplations. So yeah, if you resonate, you can chant the Heart Sutra in Mandarin or Sanskrit or English, whatever works for you. Yeah, so an image, when you're setting up a shrine, you have Buddha highest, and then you can have the Bodhisattvas and Arahants on the same level. So it's fine to have Lumpur Man, Lumpur Cha, Maitreya, Kuan Yin, and whatever. And then you've tried to find an image that is inspiring and uplifting to you. Look at that image and you get a sense of resonance. What are the qualities of that being? And then gladden the mind. Yeah, so I think we have to be willing to experiment a little bit and use what works, and then make some kind of a commitment to being disciplined with too much experimenting and isn't recommended, but a little bit is. And then if you find something that does work, then make that a discipline. So a few suggestions.
Thank you for the suggestion and guidance, Ajahn. Question 4. Dear Ajahn Achalo.
One of my teachers told me that I was a bhikkhu at Nalanda University, which would make some sense as to why I feel some resonance with the long mantra of Avalokiteshvara. Anyway, sorry, next question.
Ajahn, question 4. Dear Ajahn Achalo, I understand that you haven't felt a strong sense of belonging to the place where you were born. Do you have any idea on how to accept living in a place you have always been very averse to, when it's not possible to leave and go somewhere else due to family commitments? Sometimes it seems unbearable to spend my life here. I've made a resolution to accept this, but don't know how to go about it. Any guidance would be deeply appreciated. Thank you.
Interesting, isn't it? I mean, there are many things that I like about Australia, and there are some things that I miss. So walking on the beach along the Pacific Ocean is very, very nice. as is meditating on the beach. And a sense of orderliness, cleanliness. Another thing I miss is a sense of professional pride and professionalism in careers. And thing I don't like about Australia is it's very few people talk about spiritual matters. So it's like if I go and visit family, it's about politics, the weather, the economy, more politics, news, and hardly anybody is talking about liberating oneself from ignorance and delusion, laying the foundations for heaven and beyond. And after a period of time, like usually takes me about 2 weeks. Like the first 2 weeks, I just love visiting Australia. The nature's so beautiful, the weather's so benign, people are so decent, and then after 2 weeks, it starts to feel like a spiritual wasteland, and I'm wilting. I want to go back to Asia. So that's just how I experienced it. And of course, coming to Thailand, it's not the case that I love everything about Thailand. Oh my God, don't get me started. Anyway, in general, I prefer to be here because as a spiritual practitioner and as a bhikkhu, it's a very ripe situation. One is close to one's teachers, one is supported to practice, and even all the irritating and annoying phenomenon that one has to practice with just becomes a part of one's practice. I would even say, I might get in trouble, but I would even say that the general level of goodness in Australia is higher than in Thailand. The general level of sila and of common decency is higher. However, the good people in Thailand are even better than the good people in Australia. And the bad people are worse. And there's lots of them. But as a Buddhist monk, one gets to meet mostly good people and lots of them. The reason the good people in Thailand are better is because they have the good fortune to have met the Buddha's teachings on how to develop one's goodness and how to develop one's character and how to develop one's insight. They have a map, and they have the tools, and they have the resources, and they have places, and they have teachers. So they get the master class in how to be a beautiful being, going to heaven and beyond. So knowing the good people of Thailand is an incredible honor, and I'm very blessed and fortunate to know many of them. But if you are in a situation where, so I guess the point I'm trying to make is every place, it only gets so good, right? If you're in the human world, it only gets so good. There's, even for me as a bhikkhu in Thailand, I still have to practice with a lot of irritating, annoying, and not virtuous people. That's just part of our experience as human beings in this point in the eon. But if you're living in a place that you really don't feel much resonance with, but you have to live there, what do you do? So I would recommend making your own private space, the space that, your flat, your apartment, your bedroom, whatever it is, make that mirror your particular aesthetic, your particular taste, the things that you love. So if you're a Buddhist practitioner and whatever, pictures of Buddhas, pictures of Arahants, pictures of Bodhisattvas, beautiful statues, a few malas, the incense that you like, fragrant candles, Persian carpets, whatever, make your home a place that you love. I'm saying this as an antidote for a person who feels a lot of aversion to where they're living, right? I'm not saying for you greed types to go out shopping and get more statues, more carpets, more malas, more candles. You guys you guys just calm down. But for people who can't stand where they live, okay, you can make your life, for the sake of balance, for the sake of maintaining some kind of well-being, generating well-being as a foundation for developing further insight, make your home a place where you love to be. So, beautiful statues, beautiful paintings, beautiful pot plants. And, I have a lovely new cat who I'm fond of. Surround yourself with things that you can love. And and then when you go outside, you have to deal with it. But a little bit of cocooning, at least your private space is resonating with all of the things that you deeply love, and wholesome things and a bit of not too unwholesome sensuality. So, bit of beauty. And I think it's okay to support oneself through a difficult situation by making it beautiful and comfortable, and making it a place that you resonate with, fill it with good energy, so that when you come home, you feel like you love your home and you're happy to be home.
Thank you, Prajan.
I was trying to admonish myself earlier as well. I'm sure I have more beautiful statues and more beautiful incense and more beautiful. Just being humble and acknowledging the fact. Next question.
Question 5. Bhante, good evening. Buddha teaches that one should associate with the wise and not with fools. What should we do if the fools are our loved ones? Kindly advise. Thank you.
Yes. Everybody on the screen is laughing and smiling. So I would deduce from this that everybody knows some fools among their loved ones. Yes. It's tough, isn't it? I mean, the way karma ripens in our lives is that sometimes people in primary fundamental relationships that it's difficult not to be in relationship with have some challenging aspects to their personalities and their karma. So that's part of our karma. I guess the point is minimalize contact with people who have foolish and coarse tendencies, the ones that you can minimize that contact with. So, I teach loving kindness and I try to exhibit loving kindness, and my teachings on loving kindness are on various platforms, and people are listening to my encouraging material on loving kindness all around the world, literally. I say that as a preface to the fact that I have one sister who I don't talk to. So, and again, I'm just being truthful. It's like if people are challenging to one's own well-being past a point which is it's just not skillful. So there's a bit of background. She was a kind of a tabloid journalist for decades, and she drank too much wine on her trips around the world doing so. She's probably an alcoholic and probably on I would say, the narcissistic spectrum of personality disorders. So it's not that I don't have compassion. I do have compassion for my sister. But if somebody has an actual personality disorder and a substance addiction, then it's not easy to be near that person, especially if the way that person's disorder manifests is as aggressive hostility and fault finding. Then there's only so much benefit that can come about through contact with such a person. So I just avoid her. I do spread loving kindness to her. I do have compassion for her. I do wish her well. And I don't keep in touch with her. So this is, one has to be aware of how people affect us, and one has to be willing to draw boundaries. So if it's really not helpful to have contact with a person, and it's not necessary to have contact with that person, it is okay to not have contact with that person. And so minimalize the amount of time you have to, and with the people that you can't really avoid, then that becomes our practice, doesn't it? Patient endurance, forgiveness. And I think there is a lot to be explored in the area of being skillfully assertive as opposed to aggressive. So sometimes we get irritated, we get impatient, we get aggressive hostile, just vent anger. So is it possible, ask yourself, is it possible for me to set a boundary with this person in a way which is firm, but not aggressive? This is the whole area of skillful speech. And we all can do extra work there. It's a very fruitful area of practice. How can I skillfully set this boundary without unnecessarily hurting a person's feelings and without unnecessarily darkening my own mind with anger? Is there a way to skillfully but firmly make boundaries? Oftentimes there are. Lay down some rules, set the boundaries, renegotiate the terms. Take periods of, if it's sometimes if people are sick and dying and a lot of pain and dementia, sometimes people who get dementia can be quite cantankerous. Sometimes I've heard stories of people who've had aggressive and hostile parents who became really benevolent and gentle when they got dementia. And I've also heard stories of benevolent and gentle people becoming quite obnoxious when they got dementia. So various karmas. But yeah, sometimes we need to find ways to retreat and kind of heal from various bruises that we might feel if we have to have contact with harsh and coarse energies for periods of time. So it's a matter of exposing oneself to as little as possible and finding ways to support yourself through recovering from the contact. But it's samsara, it's a human realm. And unfortunately, there are a lot of fools. So we have to. In Tibetan tradition, they of course say that when you meet a person of extremely negative qualities, one should be grateful to have met a teacher who has come to teach us extra patience, and one should put that person on one's head with gratitude for teaching you extra patience and humility, my dear teacher. I hope you have just the right amount of these teachers and not too many.
Yeah, dear Ajahn, I heard about the Jina Panjara Gatha and wondered how the chant came about. Why was it crucial to have specific teachers, noble ones' names tagged to each body part? Suppose the qualities of noble ones, including suttas, are tagged to each body part, then as a whole, what does this add up as a whole body? Is it intended to recognize that all this adds up to a Buddha nature? Why was this chant so important such that Somdetto felt it was necessary to perfect it further? I'm curious and wonder if you could share with us. Thank you and sadhu for sharing.
Yes, so first I would say that chanting of the Jina Panjara Gatha is, I would say, a faith practice. It's not a academic or wisdom contemplation. And so apparently it was originally written by a Giri monastery in Sri Lanka, and which was an interesting kind of a fusion of Theravada and Mahayana. And Somdetto discovered it, and he actually produced an abbreviated form. So he didn't expand upon it, he made it more succinct. So for people who have a faith proclivity, visualizing, just having a kind of an intuitive sense for a heart resonant kind of an affirmation of all of the Buddhas are above my head. And then Arahants are on various parts of my body. It's a devotional practice which is bringing the Buddha and the Dharma and the Sangha into the heart and mind. And the chants which I mentioned, probably chants that people do frequently. So some people understand the Dharma as the Sutta Pitikas and the various chants that we chant, Buddha Vaja. So it's like the things that one chants often, just imagining that around the body. And if a person does it with faith and devotion and does it regularly, it's one of these things which is difficult to understand because you can't see it with your eyes. But the merit of the Buddhas is a real thing, and it's a vast thing, and it's a condition. But and same with the Arahants, the merits of the Arahants is a real thing. And when they went to final Nibbana, the merit, some of the merit is still available, is still around. And so before these great beings actually go to final Nibbana, they make thousands of aspirations that beings with karmic connections with them may benefit from their practice. And so there's this huge amount of positive blessings and positive energies and merit which is there. And if we incline the mind to that with love and respect and devotion and humility and faith, that blessing comes to us to some degree. So this is one of those things, you either believe it or you don't. But Somdet Do apparently said, and he was believed to be an incarnation of Meitya, the last incarnation of Meitya in Thailand. And he said that anybody who chants this, he will protect them. So Thais do it as a devotional practice, understanding that if they chant this chant frequently, Meitya, Somdet Do, or Meitya Bodhisattva will protect them. So I remember walking on Tudong 20 years ago, walking alone on a country road, and some guy went by on a motorbike the other direction, and I heard him chanting, Jayasana Katabuddha Jetawamara Sawakhanang Tutusa. So he's just doing his chanting on his motorbike. And it's just like a chant. It's probably one of the most popular chants in Thailand. And I think people like, that's how we are, unenlightened beings. It's like you want to get something. So Somdet Do said, if you do this, he'll protect you. If I do this chant, I'm going to get protected. So it's like, cool, they'll do it, It's like, if you give food to the monks often enough, you'll have a dream of the lottery number. So, give food to the monks. And that's how people think in the beginning stages of practice, and it's okay as long as what they're doing produces merit. So you don't need to intellectualize it too much. One does this practice. And the reason I recommended for people to chant it was during the COVID era, night after night after night, this many deaths, this many new infections, this many bankruptcies, this many suicides, the new variant, safe and effective vaccines, which, by the way, were not very safe or effective. It's just thing after thing after thing. And I wanted people to embrace a practice that would be somewhat balancing to that. It's like, okay, rather than the delta in your heart and the Omicron in your eyes and the mandates in stabbed in your back and the vaccine stabbed in your arm, you could have the Buddhas above your head and the Arahants in your tongue and the suttas around you like a rampart, and just to balance it a bit. Okay, enough for me. Don't get me started. Okay. Do the practice if you find it helpful. Try to not academically understand it, and try to do it with a heart of loving faith and devotion and gratitude, and have a look. Does the mind feel uplifted afterwards? And many Thai people will do it 3 times a day. Some people do it 9 times a day. They're doing it as a devotional practice. So, I hope that was helpful.
Thank you, Prajan. Prajan, I have those images ready. Which one do you want to start first? The cupboard or the video? The cupboard. Yes. Okay.
Let's work up from the most mundane to the most profound. How's this for a cupboard for a monk's alms bowl? What do you reckon? And who would have thought that was just sitting there in Bangkok waiting? 55 centimeters tall, 2 doors that open on either side, fits 2 bowls in each. 4 bowls can fit in here. Some spittoons and some cups in the drawers in the middle. But I need a row of them. So please show me the next one. There we go, variation on the theme. Same size, and another variation on the theme. So this one is more Tibetan, lotus, this is more Chinese. I think that's a sign for, is it happiness and prosperity in the middle?
Not sure.
Come on, I think so. I think it's double happiness, isn't it? That sign. Anyway, let's just go with double happiness. Anyway, so we have a few of them that will stretch along slightly different colors. Yes, and we all need a dragon cupboard to keep the extra tissues. And one antique one. This is the abbot's cupboard for keeping his spittoon and tissues. Do you approve? Does it look abbot-like? Well, it's brown.
Magic.
Okay.
And,
Now we also have some, yes, and there's another nice one. So anyway, we got 6 cupboards to put along the wall. The asana, what's called the raised platform where the monks sit, will be made of redwood, kind of a hard redwood, and these cupboards will be at the back of that. And then above them will be nearly 3-meter tall windows that look onto the forested mountains. So it's just a little splash of color in the context of a lot of other, nature, simplicity. And we're going to have, because I'm going for a Nepali Bhutanese theme, we're going to have a couple of temple lions. These are newly polished from Patan in Nepal. Just to give a nice Himalayan Asian classic Buddhist touch and feel. Aren't they cute? They kind of look ancient, and sacred somehow. The type of people who I show them to like them as well. Okay, the museum. This is the famous Avalokiteshvara statue found in Surat Thani province from about 1500 years ago. And they did a beautiful job of the lighting and the presentation, no glass around it. You can go right up to it, feel very close to it. It's really nice. And actually made a little mini movie of it. Here we go. Think of compassion, purity, realization of emptiness, seeing all phenomenon as empty, sticking around to help deluded beings anyway. There we go. The last 2 times I tried to go, it was closed both times. So it was this classic Buddhist Dutiyampi, before I was able to see it. Beautifully presented. So these images that you just saw were dug up under the earth in the area where Ajahn Buddhadasa's monastery was. And they were this is a Maitreya image from Indonesia, I believe. No, also same area, southern Thailand. Cute Ganesha from Indonesia. I love him very much. When I look at him, I feel thin. Yeah. Found in the same spot at the same time as the one we looked at just now. From India, from the Pala period. The little bronze, the jade meditating Buddha from China. So they presented them from age, from like the most ancient and through the centuries. They have just a few nice items from China and Indonesia and Tibet, India, as well as many from Thailand. There's a Avalokiteshvara from China, I think perhaps the Sung period. This is a Gupta image from India 1500 years ago. Avalokiteshvara of the Pala area from the Bihar area, that's where Gaya is. Lovely mother of pearl Thai style. You see there's a naga and a phoenix there in the top circle. And this was part of a very big door. Ivory. This was a palanquin for carrying around a king or a prince. And it had these ivory peacocks in the back.
I think Ajahn, is that the last picture? No,
Okay. Yeah, and this is my selection, my favorite 9 things from the National Gallery. Okay.
very nice. How big is the Ajahn? How big is the Ganesh?
Oh, he was about,
statue?
yeah, I'd say he's about, must have been about 175 centimeters tall, 150 centimeters wide, quite big.
Very cute.
Yeah, he is.
Thank you for sharing, Prajan. It's really nice.
For traveling.
National Gallery
That's
of Thailand.
Yes, I recommend that you go. Let's go together. Samsara Community.
Prajan,
Thank you, Joyce.
Prajan, do you have the photograph of the Dhanna Hall Foundation by any chance?
Yeah, I do.
Could we have a look at that?
You may. They actually just put the planks on today, but I didn't do an updated picture of it. I'll send it now. You get a nice sense for the view and also the strengths. Sending it to JC now.
It's amazing how they put the foundation on the slope, Prajan. Very steep over there.
Yes.
Hmm.
There we go.
That's right.
Wow, it's really a steep
Yeah.
slope.
Yes. Most of this monastery is steep slopes.
So, Ajahn, where is the entrance? The entrance is like.
So this is actually the lower floor. This will be our storeroom. This was emergency monks accommodation. This is 2 bathrooms. This is a veranda. And so the next level floor starts at about this height.
Also, so meaning that this is the lower floor, the bamboo part, or is this the foundation?
That's nothing. Yeah, that's just foundation. So
Okay,
from
so
here
just
up, it's the first
okay.
floor. Yeah. And we just put the soil back so that I can make a nice garden there. So had to dig out the soil to make the retaining wall 30 centimeters thick, double reinforced with water sealant in the concrete to keep the storeroom not too damp. But I try to keep things harmonious with nature. So when you're on the road looking at this, you won't even be aware of a lower floor. It will appear modest and harmonious and go with the flow of the mountain slope. But in terms of making it more efficient and getting more for your money, once you have a strong foundation, it's kind of practical to put in an extra floor because it's just a couple of posts and some walls. and then you get a whole bunch more space. So we have a good storeroom, emergency accommodation for a van full of monks, and a couple of extra bathrooms, and another balcony with the forest view.
Meaning that the main entrance will be around this area, like.
So there'll be two pathways in, just like the previous one, like here. Yeah.
There's two entrances, yeah,
That's
Praja?
right. Yeah. Monk's entrance and lay people's entrance. The lay people will come in here, and the beautiful Buddha statue will be right in front of them.
And this will be the nice view from the Dhanna Hall.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Very, very nice view.
Mm-hmm.
Nice view.
Anumodana to all of you who have contributed also. I have a little bit of interesting news, Joyce.
Probably would have guessed.
You promised to keep it a secret for now.
Among 90 old people.
At this stage, there's a 50% chance that I'm going to Bodh Gaya in a few days. So let's see. And if I go, I'll go for a month. And April is incredibly hot. And I miss it so much that I'm willing to go to the hell of sweat.
April is too hot, Praja.
Yeah, but I haven't been for 2 years and I miss it. And when you're in Bodh Gaya, sweat is holy sweat. Yeah.
All the best, Prajan.
Yeah,
We'll
all the
see.
best to you with all the 45 degrees Celsius.
I will be having an air-conditioned room from the hours from 11 until 3. But I will be there when it opens at 5 in the morning, and I'll be there until it closes at 9 o'clock at night. But I know we'll have an air-conditioned room in the middle part of the day. But I did want to mention, if anybody would like me to offer flowers on their behalf, I would be willing to do that. And poor old Auntie Joyce, another collection. No expectation. I'm giving you an opportunity if you want that opportunity. And since I can see Miss Diana on my screen, Annamodana Diana for your kind contribution to the teak wood aura of the Buddha and the brass temple lions for the Anandagiri Dana Sala. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And Joyce's family also for offering one. Annamodana, sadhu. Hopefully it's finished in time for Katina, and hopefully you can come and see it and feel blessed and happy to have contributed.
Is the schedule, the date for Katina fixed, or?
I think I'm going to check with Tanajan in 2 days. I'm going down to visit my teacher in 2 days. His birthday and his retreat. I would encourage people to join Tanajan's online retreat. And you have some time.
It's open to all projects.
His talks will be translated to English, and the Q&A is an option to ask questions, and they'll be translated for him to answer. So I will check with him. I believe it's going to be the 20th. Is it
no, 18th of November.
19 and 20, I think.
19 and 20, okay.
Yeah.
Is anyone going with you to India, Praja, Gaya?
I'm desperately trying to find somebody. Any volunteers? At such short notice.
JC is free.
Are you still on long-term leave, JC?
I am, but yeah, I have.
Come on.
I'm putting him in a spot. I'm putting JC in a spot.
Because I might need help when I land in Calcutta, because they've lowered as most people know, Ajahn Achalo didn't get the vaccine. And they've lowered their requirements, but they require a PCR test. But if they may require me to do another PCR test on my arrival, which needs to be paid for, and I won't have any money. So that's the one challenging, possibly challenging.
Praja, why are you flying to Calcutta, Praja? Isn't there a direct flight?
No, there are no direct flights to Gaya at the moment.
Okay.
Calcutta and a connecting flight. So I need to get to a hotel overnight on the 3rd and a connecting flight on the 4th. So I might need some help with that leg of the journey. So You don't have to stay for the whole month, but you should come for a week.
The
Come and
devas will be with you all the time,
Come
Prajan.
and sweat with your Ajahn.
Oh, God.
Under the umbrella.
Yeah. Well, I'm interested. As we all know, there's a room in the middle of the Chedi with a beautiful Maitreya statue, and there's air conditioning in there. So I'm curious to know if some of my students were willing to pay a donation towards the electricity costs of Bodh Gaya Chedi for a while. Would I be allowed to use the air-conditioned room in the middle of the Chedi? I'm going to try anyway. So it's worth a try. And if not, if I have some karma which might manifest as being in a very hot hell, I might resolve it and purify it through a month of sweating under the Bodhi tree.
Sadhu, 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 Prajan.
Good to see you all. Please take care.
Yeah, you too, Prajan. Take
Okay,
care.
Prajan. All the best for Bodh Gaya.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ajahn.
Sadhu,
Ajahn.
sadhu, sadhu.
Thank you, Ajahn.
Lovely to see you.
Ajahn, all the best in Gaya.